Good morning, everybody. We're here self-isolating in the New Forest. We are just a few metres away from the house. We have hidden from that, what did you call it yesterday?
The sunshine.
The sun? What did you call it?
The nuclear fireball.
The nuclear fireball.
Well, it is a nuclear fireball.
It is a nuclear fire. I can remember the exact terminology.
Thankfully, it's 93 million miles away, but without it, we'd all be a little bit, worse off.
Just a touch.
I mean, all of this here, the reason it's all green, this is the light factory. We're in the light factory, processing that sun's energy, turning it into sugars, making everything great and good for the ecology of the New Forest. Don't moan about the sun. But I am going to start off with a moan, if you don't mind.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we didn't get to watch Sunshine, Danny Boyle's fantastic sci-fi last night, because of emails.
Yeah, there were a few emails.
Oh, bane of everyone's life, isn't it? Remember life without emails?
And Zoom.
Oh, life without Zoom and email.
And quizzes.
I'd love it if I could just plug my head into something and it would turn all of my brain into algorithms, which I could then plug into my Mac that would instantly answer all of my emails, the 863 that are currently loitering in my inbox.
So you're talking about like an email telepathy?
Oh, if the future holds anything, it's got to be the
okay. Live to blue tits.
Let's go straight back to Kate McKay's live blue tit camera, which we started with in our countdown because the adult has just come in and taken away one of the fecal sacs. What a charming sight!
It's a beautiful sight for your Friday morning, isn't it?
Look at that. So this camera is one that's being run by Kate McCray. Kate is a long-time friend of ours and of the watches too, because she does her very own spring watch in her own, year-round watch actually, in her garden. She's got a multitude of cameras set up, very high-quality equipment, I have to say as well. She's brilliant at what she does, absolutely brilliant. And she broadcasts this constantly so that you can stick your noses into what's going on in Kate's garden from the animal perspective, of course. And these are her blue tits. And this nest, you know a little bit about the history of this one, don't we?
Yeah, it's been there for quite a long time. So this nest has been there for, I think, 8 years. And the blue tits have been in there successfully breeding each year. This year, there were 9 eggs laid and 8 hatched. The first one hatched on the 3rd of May, so a week on Sunday, week last Sunday. And one subsequently hatched on the 4th. But blue tits, they have a lot of eggs and a lot of chicks. I mean, you can get up to 18, and those chicks can have up to 1,000 caterpillars a day. I mean, 18 is quite rare. It's on the very high end.
And that could be an example of 2 females in one nest again, which we've been speaking about. I think we've got a couple of clips though to show you some of the back history of this. We've got this clip here. So this shows one of the adult blue tits coming in and starting to make the nest. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to make a bird's nest. That's something you might want to do if you have access to some natural materials like leaves and twigs and grass and moss and maybe some hair. Then why not set your child down with an educational exercise for the morning and ask them to make a bird's nest. They might just about finish in 2043 because we look at these structures and you've just got to marvel at how remarkable it is, and they make them so quickly.
You know, the thing about the blue tits nest as well, I think of all the nests, that looks the most coziest. That is the one that I want to hunker down in, bury myself in it, and just stay there forever because it just looks so comfy.
I've seen your bedroom. It's like a sort of a giant blue tits nest, isn't it? Really,
it's cozy.
And given that the dogs have been in there, there's just about the same amount of moss as well. To be honest with you, we've also got this other clip here, and this shows one of the eggs hatching. So this was on Sunday, May the 3rd, and if you look in the top right-hand corner where all of those eggs are, you can just see one of them moving. You can just see the crack in it as it's starting to hatch out.
It opens and closes and opens. Oh, it's so sweet, isn't it?
And I know they're common birds, and in wintertime they're found in more than 90% of our gardens. But the blue tit, I think, is a remarkable species. There's lots of interesting things to say about blue tits. We can't cram them all in this morning, but they certainly shouldn't allow familiarity to breed contempt. Enjoy your back garden bird. You don't have to be, rare exotics. Those things that are living around you are the things that are most easy to engage with, and particularly if you do it through Kate's cameras. So you can find Kate at Wildlife Kate, Wildlife Kate alfrescowild.co.uk, or she's Wildlife Kate on all the social media platforms.
She's got lots of great nests.
Yeah, she has. So check that out.
Make sure you do. Oh, females just coming in to do some feeding.
Well, let's just hang on with that. Was that feeding?
So there's 8 chicks
look
in
at
there.
that caterpillar trying to go down that one. Just about made it.
There's 8 chicks in there. So, I mean, that's about 8,000 caterpillars a day between the parents. So that's a lot of work.
Well, that's when they were a bit bigger.
That's when
I don't think they don't need that many today.
But there's still, there's so that nest will be getting pretty full pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, there's so much work that goes in those parents raising that breed. I mean, it's amazing to see that, giving that insight into their intimate lives.
Yeah, super pictures. I'm just waiting to see if she's going to take a fecal sac. She sort of look. She or he. We can't see what sex that is actually. To be honest with you, is just curiously examining all of those chicks. Maybe looking to see which one needs food next, which one's the fittest, if any of them are sick and not worth feeding at all. I mean, who knows what judgments are being made? But the parents are making those judgments. We know that some birds can actually tell the difference between their chicks' sex when they're 12 days old, swallows. So they can tell whether a young swallow at 12 days old is a male or a female, and they preferentially feed the males because the survival rate of the males, once they've fledged the nest, is considerably less than the females. So they're able to sex them in the nest and feed them more. What about that?
Stuff.
Fantastic stuff. Okay,
let's
what about our
quiz?
Our quiz of the day is this. It's a huge feather. Here's my hand for scale. I forgot to bring the 10p. So look, you can see this is a really, really large secondary feather. So, and remember, each one of the feathers that we've shown you this week are from a UK predatory bird. Well, a predatory bird that's found in the UK. Let's get that right.
Get all your answers into us in the comments and on South Ice Fishing Bird Club.
And we'll give you the answer at the end. Now, there's a fantastic conservation project running, one of a number across the UK, but this is right up there. It's called Back from the Brink, and it's a multitude of agencies that have come together to try and rescue 20 species and many others that are associated with the habitats where they live from extinction. It's great to see all of these agencies working together. It's very focused, and they're having some tremendous successes. Here is a short film telling us a little bit about which species they're looking after across the UK. Have a look at this, and then we'll tell you a bit more about this. It's fantastic.
This toad is making its way from the dunes over towards the sea, and it's doing this for dinner.
Not only are these ants super effective hunters, but they are also amazing farmers. And you normally find their nest close to a birch tree like this one, because the ants milk these aphids for their honeydew.
some stunning species and some brilliant conservationists and conservation in action there. I've had the pleasure of joining in with one of these projects, the checkered skipper that's being looked after in Rockingham Forest. They were reintroduced there, very exciting stuff, and they've begun to prosper. So the habitat management was done in advance and the checkered skippers are doing great things. I've got a list here, I won't run through all of them, but the Barbary carpet moth, the black-tailed godwit, sand lizards, natterjack toads, all sorts of beetles, the grey long-eared bat, ladybird spider, the most spectacular spider in the UK, field cricket, little whirlpool ram's horn snail, narrow-headed ant, pine marten, shifting sands in Norfolk with us, the wormwood moonshiner beetle. The wormwood moonshiner beetle.
What a
That's
name.
fantastic stuff, isn't it? And of course, the willow tit. Now, as I say, this is a fantastic conservation initiative. You can find out more details. If you look on social media, it's Nature BFTB, back from the brink. So most of the tags, so Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, if you look at Nature BFTB, you can find out more about it. But what I'd really like you to go to is to their YouTube channel, which is Back from the Brink. And there they're posting videos about each one of these individual species that they're looking after. They're beautiful and they're highly informative. And of course, they need our support. Back from the Brink, great conservation in action. We like that.
Absolutely. Now, yesterday we gave you the reminder of the fantastic colouring competition from Butterfly Conservation. We thought we'd show you the template again. This is it here. I mean, I think it's just beautifully put together. It's a great thing to do. And of course, you can use any medium you want. You can get as creative as you can. The more creative, the better. We encourage that. And
do you know what I do?
do?
I'd use a glue stick and I'd do the whole thing in glitter, like some sort of glam rock butterfly explosion, like the back of Mark Boland's jacket circa 1973.
So I'd go the opposite way. I'd do like a collage.
Oh, would you?
Yeah, but I'd have to enlarge it because some of these pieces are quite intricate.
Oh, that might be transgressing the rules.
Oh, maybe I might be breaking rules. I have to check the rules online. You can check the rules online at www.butterfly-conservation.org, and that's where you'll find this template and where you'll be able to send in your entries using the hashtag butterflies for hope.
So you've got to colour it and then photograph it, haven't you, and send it in on social media.
Exactly that.
And
Butterflies for hope.
You've got to do it by Sunday.
Got to do it by Sunday. The deadline is the 10th of May. So make sure to get your colouring crayons out, your glitter glue, your paintbrushes, your charcoal, your whatever else it is.
All right. Okay.
Send that in.
Carried away.
Sorry. I'm doing you.
Yes, you are. Yeah, okay. And butterflies bring us very neatly to our first guest, Patrick Barkham, who is an excellent journalist working at the Garden. Shall I start that again? He's an excellent journalist who writes for The Guardian, and he writes important things that need to be read. Patrick is renowned amongst journalists in the natural world for writing the truth about things. You don't always get the truth about the natural world, but Patrick pens that for us so we can get an insight into some of the more nefarious things that are happening out there that shouldn't be happening. But he's also a fantastic author. My attention was drawn to his books when I read this one a few years ago, The Butterfly Isles. Now, this is a great book, and I would urge you to look at this. Patrick took a year out, and he went all around the UK trying to see every species of British butterfly. So it's his journey. It's all the people that he meets. It's all the butterflies as well that he does or doesn't meet. And it's absolutely charming. He then went on to write Badger Lands, which is the cultural history of the badger. Lots of badger information in there, but it's the way that we interact with these animals. Then it was Islander, another one of his travelling projects. He went to lots of the smaller islands around the UK, met the people, and looked at how living on an island had influenced their history of the island, and their contemporary lives as well. And sometimes that was quite difficult. But I'm pleased to say he's now moved on to Wild Child, which is his latest book. And I'll tell you more about that after we've had a look at this film, which is Patrick with his very own wild child, Esme, out in the garden looking for butterflies.
I'm Esme Barkham, and me and Dad are going to try and catch some butterflies and look for the eggs.
And what are the tools of your trade?
A net and a container to put them in.
Do we keep the butterflies forever?
No, we let them out after you've finished looking at them.
And how long do we look at them for?
Well, at least maybe 1-2 minutes.
Yeah, just to get a good look at them, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, let's go hunting.
Okay, so I'm going to look for the orange tip and holly blue and peacock. So I'm just going to see. This is their favourite spot round here. So
Why do you think they like it so much?
it's got loads of flowers and it's got loads of sunny patches, and it has a special log where they like to sit in sun weathers.
Butterflies love shelter, don't they? So when you're looking for them, it's always good to find a nice sheltered spot out of the wind.
Nothing here. Right, so I'm going to find a plant which the orange tip lays their eggs on. So there's some right here.
They're also so tiny.
Oh wow, I found a
Hey, caterpillar, have you? Let's see. Oh wow! We were looking for eggs, but there is a caterpillar.
from where the caterpillar was. Oh, here's one.
Ah, well spotted. Nearly. There it is. Orange tip, orange tip. The chase is on. Oh.
Got it.
Oh, you got it. Amazing.
Got it.
Well caught. What is it?
Orange tip, male.
And how do we know?
Orange tips.
To its wings. So, Esme, you managed to transfer it to your little butterfly container.
Yeah. It's a real big one, this one. You don't normally get them this big, and it's actually quite colourful.
And why are we holding it in the shade?
Because if you hold it in the sun, it can get really excited, and then it could potentially fly out. And I think it's just best to put it in the shade.
How long do we keep it in a little net like
1 to
this?
2 minutes.
And then what happens?
And then you can let it out. Just let the net go up like that, and unzip it. But just don't get it with your hands, because you could damage it, and then it could not fly.
You're gonna take it out now, aren't you? But you've been doing this for years, haven't you? So you actually do use your hands, don't you?
Yeah. So once you've got like loads of practice, you can do this with your hands. But it's just safe not to do it when you're at an early stage. I'm now going to let it go, and I bet it'll go straight away, unlike the other ones I've caught, because this one's quite a big one.
Whoa, you were right. Whizzed off. That was exciting, wasn't it?
Yep.
I love that.
So lovely.
It's so brilliant. That's what it's about. It's
About that, just that sudden connection with nature.
Yeah.
When you're young, you know, getting connected to it, picking it out, and having a little look at the details of it. That's how you grow a lifelong, you know, admiration for the world around you, and then you grow up wanting to protect it.
And it's stuff in your back garden.
Yeah.
It's not on the plains of the Serengeti. I'm really pleased that Patrick and Esme can both join us this morning from their garden in Norfolk. Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Esme. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, we're good. Thanks, Chris and Megan.
Esme, that was fantastic. You clearly enjoy your butterflies, don't you?
Yeah.
What is it about them that makes you love them so much?
I like how they fly, because some of them fly in different ways, and some of them fly like other butterflies, and I like how they how they take off as well. I like that.
And do you have a favourite butterfly, Esme?
I have a top 3.
Go on then. In reverse order, what's number 3?
Number 3 would be the skipper. I like the skipper.
Fast moving butterflies that are really hard to catch, basically. Yeah.
Right, it's a bit of a challenge.
This
Okay.
large skipper, don't you? Yeah.
What about number 2?
Number 2 would be the swallowtail.
Oh, exotic.
Ooh.
And that's near us. I mean, we're very lucky. We live on the edge of the Norfolk Broads, and so our kind of local patch, we can go 3 miles down the road, and in a couple of weeks' time, they'll just be coming out, and we can go and see a swallowtail. So for Esme, a swallowtail's just like a peacock or a small tortoiseshell. It's a kind of everyday experience. So
She doesn't realise how lucky she is. Okay, and number 1, Esme, what's your number 1?
Monarch. I like the monarch.
It's a beautiful, gorgeous red colour. I have to say that is one of my favourites as well.
she's going exotic with the monarch. I mean, they're a very rare visitor to Britain. They're not really one of our species, but you've seen them in a tropical butterfly house, which is a great way to get up close and personal with butterflies too.
That's fantastic. Esme, there's so many questions coming in for you from our audience who are watching. What is your favourite wild creature?
Ooh, that's hard. I really like the hedgehog.
They're pretty cool. Do you have them in your garden?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
we do,
Yeah.
yeah.
We found some poo this morning, and we weren't quite sure if it was a hedgehog poo or not. Hang on. Oh,
Have a little look.
what do you reckon, Chris? You're the poo expert.
Oh yeah, it looks a bit like hedgehog.
It does.
Yeah, black, generally
Black.
quite sticky with a little tail on the end.
Yeah, it's white on the end, isn't
But it has got a little white patch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What
Large
is it?
bird or a small hedgehog.
Yeah, hedgehog poo is invariably sort of twisted. Obviously, it's about 6 to 7 millimeters in diameter and generally quite sticky and black.
Right.
But it does depend, of course, on what they've been eating.
Okay. We've just got a new arrival this year. We've been in our garden for 5 years, and I've sort of rewilded it, and I'm really thrilled because we've got moles this year for the first time. It's like, hooray for moles! What other creatures do you like, Ez?
I like the pie martin.
The pine marten. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
but haven't you found another mustelid quite close to you recently?
Yeah, we have. Yeah. We have, yeah. Sadly, I mean, it's a sad story because it was on the road.
But it's a polecat, and in Norfolk, I didn't realise they'd spread that far.
I didn't either, and we saw it on the road, and we were like, "What on earth is that?" And we stopped, and I was amazed. And then I spoke to the Norfolk Mammal Recorder. You know, every county has a recorder, and he said that they've spread across East Anglia. They're one of these animals that's thriving, that's doing really well and expanding its range. So that's lovely.
Yeah. And they'll be happy with people around your neighbourhood if you got those, because they control small mammals, don't they? They're really good at ratting. They fit down a brown rat hole. Obviously, brown rats are an introduced species, but I read an account of a polecat reintroduction on an area where they were overrun with rats, but didn't want to kill them, and they'd failed to control them. They couldn't stop them coming in the house, and then they released polecats nearby, and they solved the issue straight away.
Really?
Regulated that population. Patrick, tell us a little bit about your Wild Child book, because the film that you showed was basically intrinsically what it's all about. It's about putting young people in contact with nature, isn't it?
Yeah, I was really struck actually by when I became a parent. It's obviously a life-changing experience for everyone, but by how my children's childhood was going to be so different to my own. And I remember when I was Esme's age 8, sort of roaming on my own without adult supervision for miles beyond our house. And I grew up in rural Norfolk. And today, of course, that just doesn't happen for a combination of reasons. But traffic is one of the main ones, but also sort of parenting. It's now you can't let the kids out of your sight. You know, there's this sort of thing. So I was really sort of concerned about that, and just wanted my children to grow up with an intimate relationship with nature, if at all possible, and with their local neighbourhood. And so Wild Child's a kind of exploration of that. And I've been volunteering at a forest school for the last couple of years, and so I write about forest school and how the sort of impact that has on children, not just my own children, but on other children. And the kids go to forest school, so Esme still once a week goes to a forest school, as well as a conventional state primary school. So it's just really nice for them to be able to have time in nature. It's just somehow about, we've got to kind of allow our kids free play in nature somehow. And it's as parents and adults facilitating that.
And I think that from my perspective, when Megan was young, I did a lot of things that I wanted her to experience that I hadn't done since I was a child myself. And I found them even more rewarding as from an adult's perspective. And certainly I've got a different take on it. Simple things like, getting a caterpillar, putting it in a jar, letting it metamorphose, tadpoles, ditto, and going through all of these things a second time, much later in life, was almost as joyous as watching the joy on Meg's face when the tadpoles grew legs and climbed out as frogs. I mean, surely you felt the same.
Yeah, it's absolutely lovely. And you realise how little you know as well, and the sort of questions your children ask you. And I think a lot of parents worry that they have to be a kind of nature expert, and you really don't. I mean, and I know a bit about butterflies, but I really am not an expert at other stuff. And so we're sort of muddling through and learning together. And certainly I remember as a kid loving the fact that my dad didn't actually know everything about butterflies. He kind of had wildlife superpowers about other things, but butterflies were something we could learn together. And so I think it's lovely to learn new things with your children, and you don't have to be an expert, and children don't need to be informed and taught and sort of stuff pointed out to them. If you can somehow let them lead the way and discover things, and and you learn as much from them as they do from you.
Okay, Esme, what have you got planned today? Are you going to be roaming around in the garden?
Yeah, I'm going to have a look at the blackbird nests that we've got around our garden.
Oh, tell us a bit about those.
So we've had 2 fledged, and they had 3 in each. And we've got another 2 nests, one near us, and then one at the other side of our house.
And there's currently a blackbird sitting really tight on one of the nests, and we don't know if she's got very young chicks or I think probably just eggs, because this nest is quite a new one. But we were hoping that some of the blackbirds might lay second broods in their nest, but apparently that's quite unusual for them to relay in the same nest. But it's Blackbird City round us. It's so lovely. I know in lockdown, a lot of people are really struggling. We're really fortunate that we've got a garden, but I mean, we've got an industrial estate behind us. It's not an amazing patch, but just being in one place, you really we've really followed the progress of the chicks this year much more intimately, and it does, at least lockdown enables us to have a slightly more intimate relationship with our local nature. And I think my book Wild Child is about hopefully sort of celebrating really ordinary nature, like just the things. We built a pond, didn't we, Ez?
Yeah,
and 2 ponds, just £3 for some pond liner, and within 2 months, what did we have in our pond?
We had newts, we had frogs, we had frog spawn, we had...
What about the best thing, actually?
Grass snake.
Yeah.
Oh, that is great.
That's amazing.
Literally within 2 months of building this pond, and there was like, grass snake! And we ran out, and go on, Ez, tell them what you did.
So, the grass snake was swimming in the pond, and I grabbed it and got it and held it.
Oh, wow.
You have a good look.
And did it produce a smelly substance all over your hands?
Yeah, it did. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It smelled like
yeah.
onions.
Yeah.
It sort of smelled like onions. And it felt so gorgeous. Like, and I was so impressed because I ID'd it as a grass snake. Obviously, it could have been an adder. It's very unlikely, but you kind of want to know, don't you, before you pick up a snake? But she'd sort of done that, risk assessed it, and sort of grabbed it and had a little cuddle with it, and then it swam off, didn't it?
Yeah, and we had it 2 times, didn't we?
Yeah, it came back. It's come back every summer since. It's really lovely.
Fantastic. What I like about that is that you put a pond in and you build that ecosystem from literally from the bottom up, because out on your small pond, grass snake's going to be one of the top of the food chain predators, along with any herons that might come in, of course, and things like that. But to be able to build a resource that satisfies a predator like a grass snake is extraordinarily rewarding, isn't it?
It's really lovely, yeah. And it's just an instant reward, as you say.
Yeah.
Patrick, Esme, thanks ever so much for joining us this morning and telling us about your butterflies and the grass snake. Not that we're envious about the grass snake.
Not envious at all. No,
we don't have any grass snakes here.
It's fine.
Yeah. But if we did have any, I'd be leaping in the pond after them as well, Esme. I certainly would. You have a great day. Look after your blackbirds.
Thank you, babe.
Stay safe.
Yes, thanks, Meg.
Cheers, bye. And Patrick's book, Wild Child, is clearly available. I was skimming through it last night. It's really charming. It's got some great ideas. It's not a book that sort of sets out practically do this, do that, do the other. It's a book that sort of instills seeds which should grow in your mind so that you can do things with your kids which will get them that intimate contact that Patrick was talking about.
Coming up next, we have our next guest. Now, she's been joining us for the whole ride of Self-Isolation Bird Club. Lindsey Chapman is back to give us some of your questions and showcase some of your fantastic pictures and clips. Hi, Lindsey, how are you?
Good morning. Yes, very well indeed. Thank you. So many people appreciating Esme on the live chat this morning. Interesting to hear about that grass snake.
So exciting.
I know.
So lucky. Quick shout out to Jackie this morning. She went out specifically to hear the dawn chorus this morning and she heard owls joining in. She says, is this normal? Well, Jackie, I've heard that too. So yes, that certainly can happen. And well done you. Also, the swifts are back. Have you seen a swift? You have, haven't you?
No.
No swallows, one swallow and no swifts with you guys.
Yeah, we were out yesterday. I was out quite a bit yesterday. Eyes to the skies, but still no swifts here.
That's about many people telling me they are seeing them. And people are concerned this morning that this is our last day. Well, don't worry, we're back as well next week. So we do have another week to be with you. So keep sending your comments and your questions in. Now, yesterday you talked about lockdown and having time maybe to discover wildlife or to remember a sort of previous love for wildlife and also to discover new skills, whether it's painting or writing. And I've had a number of poems sent in to me, wildlife poems from Linda Nelson and Peter Hardy. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for those. And people talking about the literature, those ladybird books that you were talking about, Chris, everybody chatting about that. And I remember this treat. Look at that. That is the Usborne book of birds, trees and wildflowers, and I grew up with this absolute treat, and it was given to me from my dad because he's actually put his name there. Graham Chapman, 1982. So this is a pre-Lindsey book and I've inherited it. Absolutely love it. Now, of course, it is VE Day today. It's also a Fab Friday bank holiday. If you've no idea what day it is, it's because we've got a bank holiday on a Friday. And I thought I'd do a quick tribute to VE Day with some stunning photos that are on the Facebook group and the Twitter page as well for Self-Isolating Bird Club. So here, have a look at this. This is my land tribute. This is a hare from Harry McBride. And he says, it's nice to go to your own patch and just sit quietly and let the wildlife come to you. I thought that was a really nice sentiment, actually, at this time. Then we'll go to C, and this is Paul Dibben, who sent in a rather stunning shot of a grebe. We're talking about great crested grebes, of course. No photoshopping on that one, Megs and Chris. We'll leave that discussion for another time. And Paul Leach, who sent a short-eared owl, and that is the air tribute. That is absolutely beautiful. So thank you very much for all the comments and photos you're sending in. I've got a couple of questions, though, of course, as I always do, and they are film questions. And the first one is of a cuckoo. So hopefully you'll be able to hear the cuckoo calling. It's from Mike Warburton, and he wants to know, how are they making that very special sound that a number of people are now hearing? It's quite extraordinary.
Well, the cuckoo call is made by that organ that we spoke about last week, I think, or earlier this week, the syrinx. Of course, it was on Sunday with our Dawn Chorus special, And the syrinx is an organ at the base of the trachea where it splits to go in each of the lungs. It's not like our voice box. It doesn't have vibrating membranes in the middle of it. They're actually on the sides of the tubes where muscles which react really quickly are able to move these. And this gives some birds the ability to produce incredibly complex songs, in fact, sing two notes at the same time whilst breathing in and breathing out. The cuckoo doesn't go for complex songs. It goes for a penetrating, distinctive call, which achieves a similar purpose, of course, because it can communicate to other cuckoos over a great distance very easily with that cuckoo call. So that's the physics of how it does it.
But that's the male, isn't it? The cuckoo is the male. The female call is much less known, really. But the female there's new research from 2017 that shows just how elaborate these birds are. So we know the top fact about cuckoos, of course, is that they're brood parasites. They'll lay an egg in the nest of another species and allow that species to rear its young for it. The female, when she's laid that egg in that nest, what she'll do is she will go nearby and she will imitate the call of a hawk. And this, of course, gets the parent birds that are on that nest very, very worried and concerned, and they will be looking out for this hawk, looking out for that threat, and they'll be less likely to notice the unusually shaped, unusually coloured egg that suddenly appeared in their brood.
So they produce that bubbling call, the females, which you have to be very close to hear. So it doesn't carry like the cuckoo call. It's a low sort of bubbling call that you can hear in the bushes if you're close to it.
I was going to try and imitate it, but
no.
It's really difficult. But so they'll produce that and the call of a hawk.
Call.
Yeah.
That is just fascinating. I think cuckoos are something else, aren't they? The way that they do things and that shell as well that contains so much information for that young fledgling bird. Unbelievable. Let's talk about hedgehogs, though. Yesterday, Hugh Warwick was on. Bit of breaking news for you. The petition has now hit 700,000. So thank you to everybody that went on and signed that petition. That's brilliant. But I just wanted to show you a little bit of hedgehog behaviour. So this is two hedgehogs clearly, sort of rugby tackling each other a little bit. And I've seen this a number of times. Why is that going on at that feeding bowl?
Well, it looks like, that food is pretty good. And when they're solitary animals, and when they come across one another, particularly when one has got a valuable resource, then they are going to be a little bit aggressive towards one another and fight over that food source, which is, of course, at this point in time, incredibly important. So they're having a little bit of a squabble about who gets the tasty treats.
And sometimes if you're out on a nocturnal walk and you're fortunate to be in an area where there are hedgehogs, when you hear two hedgehogs fighting, it's a sound you will never forget. It's just horrendous screaming. Goodness knows what's happening in the bushes, but it's not pleasant. And they're very loud as well. It goes on and on and on. I've only heard it a couple of times in my life, but on both occasions, it was when I was out looking for badgers at night, no torch, just wandering around the woods. And the hedgehogs kicked off, and it makes you jump out of your skin. It's like a couple of mad banshees having a war in the bushes,
They're just the best things, aren't they? They're so unexpected as well, and how far they can roam at night, which you looked at yesterday as well. I love hedgehogs. The last thing that I want to mention this morning is fledglings, because we're beginning to get to that stage now, aren't we, where we've been watching eggs for a while. It's going to move on to the next stage. And Richard Kane sent in this fantastic picture of a blue tit fledgling. I mean, its face is just incredible. It doesn't look pleased to be out of the nest. It looks mildly annoyed. But he says, it's just wonderful to have those nest boxes to watch. And a number of people this morning are saying, do you have any recommendations of cameras, actually, how people maybe next year now can put a camera in their box?
Yeah, it is. It's next year now for those, because obviously we don't want to disturb the birds that are in the nest now, and most of those species are single brooded. It's very, 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 very rare for great tits and blue tits to ever double brood. So yes, it's about getting ready for next year. I don't have a recommendation. I've bought them before as gifts for other people, and they've worked quite adequately. Some of them work in the dark as well as using light. Some of them are black and white, some are colour. I think it's probably going to be, best to shop around and get the reviews online, basically. But they have come down tremendously in price, and they're an excellent thing to do if you've got a family, and particularly if you're a teacher and you have any school grounds where there's a potential to have blue tits, then for 2 weeks of the year under normal schooling practices, they're a great distraction and can get you away from the otherwise sort of, what should we say, the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic. Although you can integrate those, of course, when it comes to looking.
Of course you can. Yes, of course you can. Well, Crystal King wanted to know that. Of course, you could tweet Kate McRae as well. She might have some ideas for you on the old nest cams. Final thing I'm going to leave you with this morning is another fledgling. Unbelievable. This is a crested tit. Imagine having that in your garden. Ugh, what a treat. Jacqueline Lance says, this has been one of the highlights of my life. Not only has she got a crested tit in her garden, but she's also got a young one feeding. Come on, everybody.
I know.
That is spectacular.
That's going to be difficult to top, isn't it? A young crested tit.
There you go. But don't worry, everyone, we are back next week. So keep sending your photos and your questions, and I will see you then. Bye for now.
All right. See you, Lindsay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Now, a quick reminder. So the Isolation Wildlife Photography Awards is still ongoing. In fact, you've got 1 month to get all of your entries in. The premise behind the competition is that it's open for everyone. It's free to enter. So whether you are experienced in taking photos or perhaps you're new to it, you can really give it a go. And there's lots of different categories to take part in. Now, there's one where you can go out into your garden to take photographs. That one will be good.
Yep.
But I have to say, the ones that I'm most excited about are slightly unusual ones.
Go on.
So one of the categories is photographs from inside your home. So you have to be a bit creative. Perhaps the light's coming in at a nice angle. You've got house plants. Perhaps you have, a fly that's come in, Tegenaria that's come in.
Behind the TV.
Yeah, you've got to be a bit creative with that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what people do from inside their houses. Of course, there's under 12s as well. And I think young people taking photographs is fantastic because they don't constrict themselves with the rules that adults do. They think creatively and they break the rules a bit, and they come up with sometimes the best photos. So under 12s would be great. There's also a short wildlife filming category as well, where you can give it a go. Make a 3-minute film of the wildlife in and around your house and your garden, no further than those boundaries, and give it a go. Why not?
How do people find it?
You can find it online, IWPA 2020 on social media, or if you Google Isolation Wildlife Photography Awards 2020, the website will come up. You can enter it there. It's really simple and easy to do. It's a fantastic thing. It's also really accessible to all. So make sure you get your entries in. You have 1 month to do so.
Okay, what about the quiz? Here's the feather. Look at that. What a beauty. What a beauty. Oh, it smells of mothballs because I keep my feathers well looked after. This is the secondary feather of the golden eagle. The golden eagle. Who got it right?
Of course. We had lots of people getting this one right.
Yeah, well, this size was a dead giveaway.
Yeah. So on Facebook, we've got Terry, John, Victoria, Lorna, Anise, Elizabeth, Anne, Jenny, Philip, Mary, Twitter, Paula, Al, Morgan, Gail, Kristen, Sam, Andy, Emily, YouTube, Simon, Vivian, Luke, and the Nature Lover. Well done to everyone who did that.
Okay, look, I stuck all the feathers that we've had this week, bar the golden eagle, on this chart for you here so we can work through them. Here are the tawny owl feathers. So they've got that lovely chestnut colour here with that distinct barring. They're quite similar to the kestrel here, but the shape of the feather is very different, not as broad. And also on the surface of these, it's very velvety. Can't appreciate that on the screen, but you can if you run your finger over it. And also the kestrel has far more white with the invaginations of markings here. Male kestrel tail, obviously with that subterminal band and the white band there. The buzzard, okay, there's an overlap in some of the colour. We know that buzzards are very variable, but look, the bands are much narrower. The feathers are much broader, these secondary feathers here. And remember, context is always important as well. If you picked up this feather up in the middle of a field, it's much more likely to be a buzzard because you wouldn't find a tawny owl typically flying over the middle of a field. You pick these up in woodland. So think about where you find your feather too. And then these ones, if you remember from yesterday, are the goshawk feathers, very long tail feather here. And we can tell the difference between those and buzzards and other raptors because the band coloration carries over the rachis or the vein that runs up here. So where that's dark there, you see dark on the rachis, that indicates that it's a goshawk. But the most important feather I wanted to show you was this one here, which is also a goshawk's feather that's come from its breast. Now, why is that an important feather? Well, it's because I found it in a pile of wood pigeon feathers. Sometimes when you're doing a bit of nature detective work and you find a dead bird and you want to know what killed it, you can work through a number of processes. You can see whether a mammal has chewed the feathers off or they've been plucked out, indicating that it's a bird. And very often, if there's been a bit of a, I don't know, what should we say, struggle when the predator's been overcoming its prey, it might lose one of its feathers. And I found this goshawk feather in amongst a whole load of wood pigeon feathers. Now, the wood pigeon could have been killed by a sparrowhawk, could have been killed by a buzzard, but it wasn't. It was killed by a goshawk. So it's always worth sifting through those feathers to see if you can find any extra evidence. And this feather here, this one, incriminated the goshawk. Needless to say, it didn't need to appear in court. and didn't face any sentencing. It was possibly revered because it was so brilliant to find a goshawk had been eating those feathers.
All about the evidence of presence.
Yep.
If you can find evidence, you know what's around your plants. It's a fantastic thing to do.
Okay.
So quickly on to birthdays. There's quite a few birthdays today. So Veronica and Faye, happy birthday to you. Roger Heath, 53 today. Ian Ross, it's your birthday on Sunday, so we hope you have a fantastic weekend and a great birthday then. But of course, we can't forget the one and the only Sir David Attenborough.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Dave. 94 years young today.
Fantastic.
And I thought what I'd do is I'd read a couple of my favourite quotes from him, just as a little bit of a celebration. So, the natural world is the greatest source of excitement, the greatest source of visual beauty. It is the greatest source of so much in life that makes life worth living. Birds were flying from continent to continent long before we were. They reached the coldest place on Earth, Antarctica, long before we did. They can survive the hottest of deserts. Some can remain on the wing for years at a time. They can travel the globe. Now we have taken over the earth and the sea and the sky, but with skill and care and knowledge, we can ensure that there is still a place on earth for birds in all their beauty and variety. If we want to, and surely we should. So a couple of quotes from Sir David Attenborough, the man himself. We wish him a very happy 94th
A very,
birthday.
very happy birthday to Sir David Attenborough, the master,
The
guru,
wizard.
the guru. We are back next week. Don't believe the rumours. I don't know where they came from. We're back next week. We've got some great guests. Dan O'Neill will be joining us. You would have seen him earlier in one of our broadcasts with his Philippine Eagles. Hopefully he'll be back next week with Harpy Eagles. Yeah.
Harpy Eagles.
Biggest eagle in the world.
Yeah.
Heaviest eagle in the world. We'll get into an argument.
Oh, here we go again.
Here we go again. It's the heaviest eagle in the world. A formidable predator. So we're hoping Dan's going to show some of those. Nick Baker's going to be joining us again from his garden. It was oil beetles last time. I don't know what's going to be coming up. Luke Massey's back as well. He's going on a dawn course. He's promising night jars on his dawn course. Matt Moran sent us in a beautiful film that he'd made about foxes in London. So I think he's going to be giving us an update with those foxes. We're hoping for something from Jane Goodall, which would be tremendous if we get that. And Maya Rose Craig, whose birthday it was yesterday, will also be telling us a little bit about how she is encouraging people of different ethnic groups to join in their studies of the natural world.
Yeah, we're going to be going a little bit international as well. We're going to have some features from around the world. So we're going to be going a little bit further afield again to bring you some wildlife and conservation stories from around the globe too.
Excellent stuff. So we'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. That's it, really. I think we're going to watch Sunshine.
Yeah, we are.
So look, it's a little bit. No, we did that yesterday. Okay.
Show's gone.
All right. Okay. See you Monday.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
See you. Bye bye.